Hey friends, Dave here with Transfer Express, and today we are talking all about turn times for your apparel business. Now, whether you're a custom decorator or you're running your own Etsy shop, setting turn times is super important for your business. So we're going to talk about how you could calculate your turn times, how you could use them in your favor, and how you could stay on track, maybe even when things go wrong. So are you ready? The clock's ticking. Let's go. If you are new to Transfer Express, we are the world's largest supplier of custom screen printed and digital heat transfers, heat presses, free customizable designs, wholesale apparel, and expert advice to help grow your t-shirt business. If you haven't already, subscribe. We're kicking out new videos like this one every single week. Now, before we get into calculating your apparel printing turn times, let's chat about why they are important. The first being that they could help you win business. In the apparel decorating industry, as you may know, many jobs come in for events or occasions, typically tied to a specific date. Ensuring you could meet your customers' needs by that specific date is important, and then it's the difference between getting the job or even passing on it. Sometimes your customers expect an unrealistic turn time, and communicating that is a-okay if it's just not going to work for you and your shop. It's better to be honest than overpromise and then underdeliver. Now, in other cases, being able to beat a competitor's turn time could help you acquire more business, with many small shops using quick turn as a major selling point for themselves and getting more business out of it. Now, if you're focusing specifically on your local community as your target market, hammer this down. It's going to help you win those jobs. Now, if you're running a brand on Etsy, you want to be sure that your turn times are set accurately. This allows your customers to set expectations of when their order is actually going to arrive, and Etsy could penalize you if you don't hit these dates. That involves de-indexing the store on search or even pulling it down. Now, you could adjust them under the shipping profile in your shop manager settings. Etsy allows for 1 day to 10-week turn times, as it is a handmade marketplace. So set your turn times in there accordingly to set those clear customer expectations that fit with your production schedule. Now, if you're just running a side hustle, it's okay to have 3 or 4 days processing time. However, you're going to notice that most t-shirt shops on that platform are fulfilling their orders in 1 to 3 business days. Which, let's mention business days real quick here, because most turnaround times anywhere in any industry are noted in working days, otherwise known as business days. This doesn't account for weekends or holidays, so make sure you note that as to clearly communicate when your customer's order will ship or be ready for pickup. All right, let's talk about setting those turn times now. Now, this is going to be a basis, but your turn times may vary based on how you're actually producing your apparel. For our examples here today, we're going to be using screen printed transfers and a heat press for our custom orders, as well as our on-demand fulfillment scenario that we're going to go through here too. So first up, our custom print shop scenario. If you check around online, turn times for custom shirts can vary anywhere from 5 days to 3 weeks, and even more for all of that custom printed apparel. Now, when you're setting your own turn times, it's wise to keep them standard and adjust as needed for those rush orders with rush fees, which, just side note real quick, it's easy to calculate rush fees if you use a standard set formula, something like 10% of the order total for every day taken off production. If something costs $300 to produce and they need a day taken off, then it's a $30 rush fee. So it's always good to build in some wiggle room too in your turn times in case something goes wrong, but keep them quick enough to be attractive to your prospective customers. It's always better to ship early than ship an order late. Now, for calculating our own turn times, let's look at how long it's going to take for our supplies to come in and when we're actually going to be able to print the job. So our time starts when the customer places an order. We're going to always call this day 0. Let's build day 1, which is the next day, for order processing. Now, this is where we're going to check the specs, order the apparel in from our bulk wholesale supplier, get the artwork set and set up, and then order our transfers here if we're using screen printed transfers and a heat press to get everything ready to go. So this is day 1. Now, it's wise to point out to your customer if you need to make any artwork changes or send a proof, like a mock-up of the order, that the turnaround time is dependent on that. Because if your customer doesn't approve a proof for 3 days and you have your turnaround time set for 4, you don't want to be putting yourself in an unnecessary rush to finish the job on time, especially if you didn't even order the apparel in. So next, let's check the turn time from our vendors. So say our wholesale apparel is ordered after that 3 p.m. cutoff from our vendor, it's going to then arrive in 2 days. And the screen printed transfers are a 1-day turn with a 1-day transit time, just for our scenario, so they're gonna be arriving on day 3 of our turnaround time, because this is day 1 that we're ordering everything. So now if everything, the apparel and our transfers, are arriving on day 3, it's safe to say that we could run production the next day on day 4. So if a customer orders on Monday as day 0, it's going to leave the shop for shipping or pickup on a Friday night as day 4. Now, of course, you could build in any extra day there if you need wiggle room, or maybe even produce that day that both the transfers and the apparel arrive, allowing you to ship that day earlier. Now, you may need to compensate for some wiggle room if you have a very full production schedule, but that all depends on your shop's capabilities and current workload. So, just to recap, day 0 is the day the job's received. The next day, day 1, we process the order, place the order for the apparel, prep any art, and order our transfers. Day 2 and day 3 are transit times for materials, the shirts and transfers in this case, but say if you're running a screen printing shop, here are the days that you're going to be burning the screens and getting the inks all mixed up and ready to go. Now, it's wise to open the shipments of apparel and transfers when you receive them to catch any issues whatsoever before the production day. Like those Kelly green shirts you ordered, you open the box and they're actually royal blue when they arrive. Yeah, that's a problem. Now, day 4 is our production day. So that's when we're going to print, and day 5 could possibly be our wiggle room day, where you're just going to be shipping early if everything goes to plan. Now, of course, things happen, and most of the time, if you need that extra day, you could upgrade shipping to a 1-day transit time to your customer instead of a standard 2 or 3-day transit time. So your customer still receives the goods on the day you originally promised and never knew that anything went awry with their order. So you know the ins and outs of your shop better than I ever will. So advertise your turn times accordingly. Be upfront and honest about the in-hands date with your customers when they're placing the order, just to be sure everybody's on the same page. Communication with customers always pays off. All right, so now with that out of the way, let's chat about printing for an Etsy store or any online fulfillment. With ordering everything in for each project, like the scenario that we just ran through, you could see that we're not going to be able to hit that timeline of that 1 to 3 day average if we ordered everything in when our Etsy orders were coming in. Now, this is where printing on demand yourself comes in. And we put together a great video all about printing on demand right here that we're going to link, and we'll link it down in the description below. Now, with printing on demand, you'll order some apparel in as well as your transfers before any of your orders actually start rolling in. So think of it as just setup when you're putting that listing up on your store. Now, that way you can maintain a small stock of blank apparel and print only when needed. So in all reality, you could be grabbing the right size and color of t-shirt along with the right print and then produce them almost immediately when that order comes in. Then packing it up and shipping them takes almost as long as producing it. Now, this is exactly how those small, single-person Etsy shops can fulfill orders on demand in just 1 day, all without the risk of buying or printing these big, bulk runs of the apparel up front. A risk for sure, because if a style, color, or size doesn't sell, it's money of yours that's just sitting on the shelf. And with printing on demand here that doesn't sell, could be used for another design down the road or returned back to the supplier as a worst case scenario. And of course, that's for a small restocking fee. So either way, as a startup shop or a seasoned decorator, you could rock those turn times. Now, of course, if you ever run into backorder issues with blank apparel, communicate that to your customer. In my 10+ years in the apparel decorating industry, customers are usually fine switching over to a different style as long as they can meet the same in-hands date. Or in the cases that it has to be that specific style, they'll wait for it to come back in stock. But put that on your customers to decide, not you and your shop. But I hope you feel confident setting your own turn times or processing times for your apparel business. Be sure to analyze your vendors' turn times and develop a system that works for you and your business. With quick turn transfers and wholesale apparel vendors at your fingertips, you can compete with the nation's largest print shops from a spare bedroom, garage, or workshop. Just remember, under-promise and over-deliver. It's always better to ship early than to ship late. But as always, be sure you're subscribed here to the Transfer Express YouTube page to stay up to date on all of the t-shirt business tips, tricks, and inspiration that we're dropping every single week. But until next time, I'm Dave. Happy pressing.